Hi, this is Pearl and welcome to my channel. I have a process video here for you. Now I'm using the Felicity Jane Grace kit as well as the Allie Edwards Story Kit We. And I'm using the Allie Edwards Story Kit class as a jumping off point for this layout. Now this layout is the picture is of my girlfriend and me. We are at Magnolia down in Waco, and I'm just telling the story about how we met. Now I'm using my Caterpillar Pro to cut off the edge of the photo, so I'm going to just use the pink as my background. Now I'm going to measure to see where I should start my journaling because I do want to use stamps and I have a long story to tell. Now I'm looking at these strips to see what I want, what or if I want to add below my picture and above my journaling. And I'm also looking at the alphas that came with the kit to make sure I have enough room on top for a title. But you'll see that I end up not even using the alphas with this kit. So I'm using the We stamp that came with the kit, and I'm going to use the gray or morning mist VersaFine, and I'm using the ruler there to measure because I'm going to use 1-inch margins on both sides, and I'm also going to mark on the bottom right hand corner some space because I want to do another stamp there after I'm done typing. I really should have done it beforehand, but you know, hindsight is 2020. So this is what I wrote on this journaling. We met the week of freshman orientation, the summer of 1989. Michelle Miller. I had no idea how much this person would impact the rest of my life. We met through her then boyfriend, Scott Schock. He and I were doing summer school at Andrews University before our freshman year of college. He talked about his girlfriend a lot. I wondered if anyone was as awesome as he kept saying. He kept telling me we would become really good friends, that we had a lot in common, and we were both accounting majors. Then I met her, Michelle Miller. We were both a little apprehensive about meeting each other. How can someone really be that great? But it was instantaneous. From the time we met, we were inseparable. Where one of us was, the other was somewhere nearby. We spent the next 2 years doing everything together, from doing group blind dates to meet new guys, to sneaking out on the weekends to go dancing in Chicago, to spending hours just gabbing. We did have a lot in common. Both of us were PKs, pastor's kids, came from a very conservative family. We were both thinkers and did a lot of journaling. And I'm so glad we had many classes together those first 2 years of college. Michelle helped me be brave and do things I normally would not have done on my own. It really was like she was the other half of me. Because we came from different schools from different states, we introduced each other to the others as friends. This made our circle of friends really big. I got to introduce her to the boys from Andrews Academy, and she introduced me to the Broadview gang. She slept over at my house many weekends. Her parents wrote a note to the dean that she was allowed to come to my house anytime. My parents loved her like she was their daughter, even though there was the little issue of the language barrier. Roy and Eric, my brothers, treated her like a sister. 30 plus years later, I still consider her one of my best friends. We can go months, sometimes years without communication, but as soon as we see or start talking, it's like we saw each other yesterday. I'm so grateful that Scott introduced me to her all those years ago. When I was in Dallas for Tammy's 50th birthday, I went out a little early to spend a couple of days with Michelle. We drove down to Waco to visit Magnolia, the fixer-upper on HGTV. I love the farmhouse look decor, but instead of really visiting the different places, we spent more time sitting around and catching up. We can really talk about everything. Even though it had been years since we had seen each other, it was like we were back in college. I feel so blessed to call her friend. After I do that journaling, I'm going to use a gray stamp and the stamp that says the story of us, and I'm going to stamp the bottom right hand corner of the journaling. So I do use the VersaFine Morning Mist to stamp the story of us to the bottom right hand corner of this layout. Then I'm going to use the scallop that I fussy cut from the paper that shows us what designs we have in this kit, and also edge. oh, I can't, branding strips. Oh, why can't I ever remember what those are called? And the branding strip with the polka dot on top. I initially thought I was going to sew it, but I think I just forgot in the midst of doing this layout. So after I adhere those down, I'm going to start layering my photo. And I use different pieces of cardstock to adhere, and I'm using my Kokio adhesive, which is my favorite roller dot adhesive, excuse me. And it's a Japanese brand adhesive that I use, and that can be purchased on Amazon. Now I'm going to do layering. I'm going to put about 1, 2, 3 different layers on this photo, and I'm going to use my Caterpillar Pro, which is my favorite paper trimmer, to trim. I love that there's LED lights underneath, so I can see exactly where I'm going to be trimming my paper. So I'm using the pink paper first as my first layer, then I'm using the rest of the back of that pink paper, which is the stars, as my second layer, and then I'm going to use this mint flower as my third layer, and I'm just going to cut that. And it doesn't need to be precise. I don't want it to be precise borders all the way around. I want it to be a little wonky, so that's why I lift up the paper to cut the layer from the green paper. Now I do use one of the, oh, I also use the back of that green paper for my yellow border, no, yes, border layer. And I'm using the white eraser to erase my pencil marks. Now you'll see on the top, didn't leave enough space to use my alphas, but I end up not using it anyway. So I'm going to adhere that down. And of course, I'm going to use my Stampin' Up! Foam Dimensionals. But before I do that, I'm looking and seeing what um, die cuts they have available. And remember, I have already fussy cut a bunch of flowers from one of the cardstocks that came with this kit, so I want to be sure I use that. I'm looking at all the stamps that came with the kit to see if there's any stamps that I can use there as well. I end up not using the stamp, but I do go through some of the items that I fussy cut. I am going to use the wood veneer You and Me that came in the Ellie Edwards story kit, and I'm going to use the die cuts and the flowers I fussy cut as 3 areas of embellishment for me. Now I'm going to be using foam dimensionals. Now I don't remember where I got these particular foam dimensionals because they're so old. I'm surprised they even stick. But my preferred foam dimensionals are the Stampin' Up! Ones, and I'll have those linked down below in case you're interested. So I'm using the die cuts as well as the flowers that I fussy cut. And I'm going to put them into the 3 corners, the top left, top right, and bottom right of the photo. And I'm going to use that to layer as well. I'm using my roller adhesive to adhere You and Me on there, and the ampersand is coming from the kit, from the Felicity Jane Grace kit, and I'm going to pop that up with foam dimensionals. Now I'm going to put 2 layers of die cuts or fussy cut onto each of the areas of embellishment clusters, but I'm also going to use some chipboard. And to adhere the chipboard, I'm using my Tombow Mono multi-adhesive to add the word best friend to the bottom right hand corner of the layout, gingham heart to the butterfly on top right of the layout, and a little arrow to the top left of the layout. After I do that, I also realize I haven't date stamped this yet. So initially I think I'm going to use a VersaFine Morning Mist stamp, the gray ink pad, to stamp the date, but I end up using a label that came with the Felicity Jane kit. So I'm using the Felicity Jane date roller stamp, and I'm going to use the StazOn black ink to stamp the date onto there. And then I'm going to use the foam dimensionals to adhere that to the layout, to the bottom right hand corner of the layout. Now I'm trying to be careful here because that isn't completely dry yet. So while I'm waiting that to dry, I'm adding foam dimensions to other portions of the photo to pop it up a little bit. And after I adhere that, I am going to, of course, splatter. It's not a layout without splatter, right? So I'm going to use the Dr. P.H. Martin Gold, and I'll have that link down below. I stopped using the Heidi Swapp Gold because I can't find the Heidi Swapp Color Shine anywhere anymore. And I'm going to splatter that to the 3 areas of my embellishment clusters. Then I'm going to use my Nuvo drops. There's these new ones that have a pearlescent sheen to them. And the one I'm going to use is called Dragon Scales. It's pretty green, mint green, kind of a pearlescent. So I'm going to put those into the 3 areas of my embellishments. And then I call this layout done. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoy this type of video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.